And a good Sunday morning to you out there in Tube Land. Had somewhat of a nice warm Sunday morning. So I thought I'd take a little ride. Put some juice in this battery on this Burgman. Just finished yesterday putting the clutch back together and putting it back into the Burgman. For those of you that don't know, I screwed up and put too good of oil in it. This is an oil bath clutch on this bike. I put a synthetic blend air in there that had additives that coated those clutch plates, and just as soon as the clutch warmed up a little bit, it would start slipping. And slipping bad. Matter of fact, that hill right there by my house, the last time I come home, I just about didn't make it up it. So I tore it apart. I couldn't tell by the wear on the plates that were in it how much wear there was, because I didn't know what they looked like when they were new. They were thin. The facing on the clutch plates were thin, but of course they weren't wore out. There was no metal to metal or whatever wear whatsoever, and all the metal parts were not worn at all. And the bike's got 50,000 miles on it, so I thought, well, seeing as how you got it apart, instead of just cleaning it up real good and putting it back together, you just well put new parts in it. So about $193 and 2 weeks worth of wait, and I had some new clutch parts. So that come in the mail Thursday, Friday evening. I come home and I put it all together, and then yesterday I put it back in the Burgman, filled it up with oil, took it for a little ride just to make sure everything was okay, and it was. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. No leaks, no slips, everything seems to be fine. I did not do any videotaping of taking it apart, taking it off, putting it back together, putting it back on, or anything like that, because as those of you in the Burgman world know, there's a gentleman on YouTube by the name of Le Dude that has every possible video you could ever want about taking anything apart or taking it off or putting it back on about a Burgman 650 that you could want. With exception of the ignition key switch, like the issues I had, but I did post videos about that. He's got a real good two-part video on removing the clutch and disassembly and reassembly and putting it back on. There's no sense in repeating that. I will put up a picture right about here of the one of the clutch facings to show you what they look like. I'm guessing there was at least 50%, without getting the micrometer out and reading it, there's at least 50% of the clutch facing left. But it is a simple task. Any of you out there with Burgmans think you might want to tackle, there's not a lot to it. It takes one tool that maybe you wouldn't have. I made mine It's just a tool to hold the clutch while you unbolt it from the shaft. The dude shows you a picture of the one he made to do it. I just took an old lawnmower blade, cut the center hole out a little bit bigger, drilled a couple holes in it for some bolts. You'll see what it is if you want to look at it. Like I said, I just used a lawnmower blade. I made one myself. Other than that, some metric wrenches. You got it made. On to other things. A little message of deep sorrow to the Smyrna Cowboy, Big Bill Chicago, and RC 62. Losing family members here recently. I never know what to say, so I don't say it. I think that's worse than saying the wrong thing sometimes, but with you guys, Rob and Big Bill, I tell you, losing your dad's not an easy thing, but I can also tell you he'll always be there around you. Every time you make a decision about anything, or you go to fix something, or you go to help somebody, that's your dad in you. You'll know what I mean if you don't already. Well, there's been a few mild days here in central Indiana. Yesterday, for example, it was in the mid-50s. Wasn't 72 degrees like it was in Oklahoma City, where my favorite son lives. But it was warm. And today it's around 45, I think it is. I thought I'd take a little ride, charge the battery up a little bit, check this clutch out a little bit more, and it seems to be just fine. Noticed this winter, doing some videos out in the barn and such, that my GoPro didn't seem to want to stay running for very long. And finally I made a trip into work, and it wouldn't make a one-way trip on the battery. The battery finally give out on it, which I had bought an extra and had never had it in there, so I slipped it in and everything's working just fine now. Yeah, that's nice. No slippage whatsoever. Cut a tree down for a guy up here. Actually, it was close enough to the house and big enough. I had my uncle come over and cut it. And then I cut it all up for firewood. A great big red oak. Right there, close to that guy's house. A lot of firewood laying there on the ground. I believe there's a guy up here on the nest turn that cuts firewood for a living, if I remember right. At least that's what it appears. It might be for his own use. I imagine when I had that big pile of logs out in my yard that my buddy Clayton brought over on his log truck, when I had that out in the front yard, it looked like I was doing it for a living too. Nice looking place down here for sale too. At least I imagine it's still for sale. Yeah. Pretty big house. There goes the Cynics family.